Rico. I work for Caridad, where we are trying to humanize homelessness. I am here with Connor from Fresh Bros. So as you know, Wednesdays are for wellness, and something that we're going to talk about today is the company of Fresh Bros and how they formulate CBD. But as you know, I like to get to know the people behind the company. So Connor, you were considered a formulator.
I am.
And like I shared with you before, I have kids, so I all I think of is, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, crazy hair scientist, chemistry. You look a little different than that.
I do. I clean up Sundays. No, my lab coat's back at the lab. I don't usually wear goggles unless I deal with something super dangerous. But usually we do all right. So.
Yeah. So no hair. So you've ruined my whole stereotype of what I think a formulator should look like.
No,
but that's good, right?
No.
We're destroying.
We're breaking boundaries at Fresh Bros for sure.
Exactly.
We like to promote the anti-stoner stereotype.
Okay. See, that's nice.
Yeah,
so
we're
that
the active.
we were talking before that there's a spectrum for everything. So there's a spectrum, right? Not everybody looks the same.
No.
So can you start kind of telling us what Fresh Bros is and
Absolutely.
what they do?
So Fresh Bros, we're a wellness company. Our main thing that we have been working with in the last few years is CBD, and big into Delta 8 now, which is a different cannabinoid, and it's also a kind of THC. It's actually something that I have almost started smoking exclusively just because of it helps my specific issues, and it's something that I became really passionate about once I became introduced to the company. I actually was just a regular stoner for the most part for years. I've worked on the weed farms in Southern Oregon. I've worked in California with some concentrate companies, things like that, and kind of worked my way down here eventually. And I got the opportunity to work with Fresh Bros, and they actually talked to me about Delta 8 and CBD, and I'd never really worked with those specifically because I was always chasing the psychoactive effects of, like the Delta 9s or things like that. But once I started looking at it and I started using them, I have things like PTSD, I have things like really high anxieties, I have sleep issues, I have nightmares, things like that. I like the Delta 9, I like the THC and things like that, like that a lot of the cannabis users also use. But the Delta 8 and the CBD is more of a balancing effect. It takes away your anxieties, it neutralizes you out, doesn't couch lock you, it allows you to have a productive day, get things done. And this is something that's not just a running from your problems thing, it's not like an escape. You're not just trying to walk out on the couch or not acknowledge your issues. You're actually being able to process your issues and work through them. So it's something that's been really interesting as I've worked with it.
Okay, so I completely am clueless to CBD, so we're going to do a little education.
For sure.
But I first wanted to kind of ask, because I know you'd mentioned personally that you'd been a Marine. Mm-hmm. So was that pre-post journey, during, when did that kind of fit into that?
So I went into the Marine Corps when I was 18, straight out of high school.
Was that before you started smoking weed?
I definitely started smoking marijuana at 15 or 16.
Okay, so you dabbled with it, went into the Marines, right?
Absolutely. So, okay. I quit once I went into the Marine Corps. I didn't use drugs while I was in the Marine Corps. That was from 2011 to I'd say 2014, the end of 2014 beginning of 2015. But then as soon as I got out and I definitely went right back to the weed farms in Southern Oregon. That was one of my first gigs when I got out. I had some good buddies from high school who had gotten out and they'd started getting successful and growing and things like that. All of it was interesting to me. I got in some trouble in my life as a young adult also. I ended up having to do a little bit of time and having to learn some lessons, and it was really, really hard for me. I ended up spending about 6 months in solitary confinement, and it really, really did a wreck on my brain.
Right.
And it definitely gave me a better outlook on what people actually go through in that system. It's crazy. There's definitely dudes in there who literally just are trying to medicate themselves over time and don't have access to the right things, or people who don't even have the right healthcare, so they have to go to the streets and then end up having to deal with problems like this. It hits home,
Yeah. So would you say some of the solitary confinement was maybe what created the PTSD?
Oh, absolutely. It was like 3 months on, 3 months on of basically no human voices, four walls. You have to stay awake between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. or you get more time.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. No books, no nothing. You just stare at the walls. That's it.
Yeah.
Stay awake.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, I mean, and in the end, like, it definitely helped turn me into who I am and like give me the focus that I needed to
Right.
succeed and all these different things. There's a lot of formative things that went into doing my time and like becoming who I am, but like there's so much that's not necessary in building someone back up and rehabilitating someone. Like you can't just like force someone to change by
Yeah.
putting them in a box.
Exactly.
I think that there's definitely like huge issues with our justice system that we definitely need to fix. I think there's other things in this world that we need to be focusing on that are actually going to do more good for people.
Right.
Rehabilitation should be a real thing, not just like a table someone for a couple years and let them come out and see what happens, you know?
Right. Well, I see that a lot with our vets. My vets specifically that work with me in DT Alley, they've been homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, when you're talking about solitary confinement, when I have the conversations with a lot of the vets or even the homeless that are in my alley, I feel like it's that same thing of they
Yeah.
just are alone. They may not be with the four walls, but they definitely feel isolated and alone. There's no one to go to, even if there is, right? Because a lot of them say, I have family, but they won't listen to me, or I have family, but they're just not like me, whatever it is. But it's that isolation, that solitude.
We feel different a lot of times.
Yeah.
We feel different. We feel like we can't be around people.
Right.
Like we feel that we won't be accepted or that like our issues are different than other people's issues. Like, especially anyone who's had something combat related or physically traumatizing to them.
Right.
Like that's something that changes you forever. And you don't feel like you can talk to someone about that.
Yeah.
Because like you don't feel like anyone has been through the same traumatic injuries or the same traumatic anything as you have, because like yours was so specific to you.
Right.
And this is something that like we as a community need to start talking about, because like one of the biggest things in the veterans community that I see that damages us is like toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, like we don't ask for help.
Right.
The fact that you guys are out here like outreaching these dudes is crazy, because like most veterans aren't going to ask for help because we're taught not to ask for help. And like even as like men, we're taught not to ask for help, figure it out. Like I can't tell you how many times I've gotten into situations where I'm just like, I'm so in over my head.
Right.
I am so in over my head, but I just have to dig myself out, because like that's what I was taught to do. That's what I was trained to do. I shouldn't need help. Like I am a Marine, I am a this, I am a that.
Right.
Doesn't matter. We're all human. We all need help.
Exactly.
Like I've started training myself to like, even if I like get in something that's like slightly difficult, I'll like call one of my buddies who is smarter than me in this area.
Right.
Because like, what if I could learn something at this moment, and then I wouldn't have to call him again next time. So like just little things like that. But like it's a full scale, like from like retraining yourself from boot camp, from your training, like everything from that coming back to the real world. Like it's not something that's addressed.
Right.
And so I don't know. It's just hard. But like the more I like work with the CBD, the Delta 8, and like we've been sending it out. So I've been working with the company for a little under a year. Most of what I knew about formulations and the other kind of stuff came from black market knowledge, things like that.
Right.
And then I was able to take it and work with this company, and in doing that, like now I can make new products for customers who have the same exact issues that I do.
Right.
So people emailing us about nightmares, people emailing us about like they can't sleep or they can't control their volume when they talk to people. Like, dude, here, this is what's going to take the edge off, but not knock you out. Like this is, like people who are on opiates for years because that's what the government gave them, and that's all that they know. And then I send them a little bit of this stuff, and like it's completely legal, and they don't have to worry about going down the street to a drug dealer. They don't have to worry about dealing with anyone else. Like they can just buy it on a website, and it helps. It specifically helps what they have going on.
Right, because if they buy it in the black market, right, they don't know what they're really getting.
No.
They could say this has THC or this is CBD, but we really don't know
No idea
what we're
unless you
getting.
test it.
Right. Whereas a place like Fresh Bros, you have someone like you as a formulator that's actually, so I'm hearing CBD, I'm hearing Delta 8, Delta 9 THC. So explain that to me. I'm foreign to this,
Of course,
right?
of course.
My dad was military, high level military. My mother was FBI NSA.
Gotcha.
So this is the gateway drug, is what's been programmed into me.
I
Right?
would love to change
So
that.
I stayed away, right? I was a professional athlete, didn't want to do anything. And any time that I did, I probably have tried to puff like 3 or 4 times in my life. But what it created was hallucinations and anxiety in me.
Really? I feel that.
Yes, because I have high levels of anxiety and performance anxiety.
I feel that.
Being a professional athlete, right? How
Absolutely.
unusual is that?
Absolutely.
So
No,
how
for
would you
sure.
explain this to me if I came to you and say, having trouble with rumination, anxiety, my voice always raises, right?
Yeah.
So I have kids that I'm raising and it always raises, and I'm always wondering afterwards, why did I do that? Right? The military thing comes into play, right? So how would you explain that you could help me with these things?
So the big thing with the differences between the CBD and Delta 8, CBD is definitely going to be like, so I use it a lot in like my skincare, is my, it does have the anti-anxiety, but in order to get like really what you want out of it, I would probably do higher dosages of it, but so the CBD doesn't have any of the THC in it. That's the stuff that's, you know, nationally we're good to go. You can sell it in any store basically, and that's fully legal. You don't need a dispenser. You don't need
You can get it at your
hemp handler's
natural,
license. Exactly. That's
health
the hemp.
food stores.
The Delta 9 is what comes from anything that's like, so that's like the Delta 9 THC cartridges, the little vape pens, things like that. That's what's specifically Delta 9. The THC, that's what's in all of the stuff that's normally, you know, the cannabis plant.
Okay, so that would be like the apothecary places. Okay, and that, do you need a card? Like, would I need a card or something for that? No, I can just walk in.
You can walk in and buy that in just
Okay.
any state that has it legally right now for
Got it.
dispensaries. But that's what's in all the other stuff that is psychoactive. That's the stuff that gets you high.
Okay.
And then the Delta 8 is something that's come out in the last couple of years where they took CBD and CBN, which is a different cannabinoid, but it's the sleep cannabinoid. It's the one that I'm using a lot for, like, to replace things like melatonin and sleeping pills and stuff like that. We have a couple sleep tinctures that we use with that, and those are like the quick REM, and like you take them 2 or 3 hours before you go to bed, and then by the time you're ready for bed, you're like, ooh, okay. We have a couple other ones that have the D8, and so the D8 is the most interesting one to me. The D8 you can make from either CBD or CBN, and once you do certain things to these cannabinoids, it becomes psychoactive. And so it becomes psychoactive like the Delta 9.
So it turns it into this.
Yes.
Psychoactive.
But what it does is when it becomes psychoactive, it doesn't have the couch lock effect, you know, that like heavy, like I need to just walk around and eat everything, like lay down, be lazy. It's definitely like a more energetic, like sativa, but it doesn't like hype you up. It lowers your anxieties. It allows you to relax. It's kind of like, I mean, we call it the boneless weed. We call it the boneless weed, or like
I'm learning.
We have some really, really creative people at Fresh Bros, and they've come up with some funny stuff. Like our sleep tincture, Dream 8, things like that. Like our marketing guys are really, really awesome over there. Our customer service woman Audrey, she's awesome. Our owner, again, Adam, he's super killer. He gives me a lot of leeway to like work on some of these projects and move around and kind of experiment with it. But so the Delta 8 is our boneless weed, and so that's what is legal to ship into any of the 50 states still. And so like even if you don't have a cannabis dispensary, or you're in like Ohio, or you're in like Chicago is legalizing weed now, which is cool, which is awesome. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, if you're in any of these states that you can't get cannabis in, I can send you this Delta 8. Like I got Marine buddies from every state, and like I used to be able to, you know, like do whatever I could to get them what I could from back in Oregon, but like now they don't know what has to worry about anything. Like it's the best thing in the world. And like a lot of people, like when I come to them, like these street hustlers that I know, or like these guys who like move weight, I'll be like, hey, like what about this Delta 8 stuff? And they're like, you know, it's not gangster. And I was like, but gangster's the worst thing that happened to men in like the last 30 years, like we need to take care of each other, not
Right.
like ruin each other.
Which goes into that masculinity thing
Yes.
that you were talking about.
Yes,
Yes.
and like these are the barriers. Like it's not about getting over and like being the best or like taking someone's stuff or like
Right.
I mean, I even think of the cannabis industry as something where you should where it should be like an information sharing. Like
Absolutely.
why are we hiding our secrets? Why are we treating it like criminals do? Like where we want to hold our secrets and not advance our plant
Right.
knowledge. Like every time I meet someone who's in the industry like me, like I'll tell them the things that I've done that I think are really, really cool. Be like, hey, yeah, no, take this, work with it. Like if you do something with this, like if you make it better, tell me so I can make it better.
I just think of if you're making a tincture and let's say that you're sharing it with our vets,
Mhm.
right, and they're suffering with certain levels of PTSD, why wouldn't I want to share that with the world,
Yeah.
right? Because we know that PTSD is not just limited to Las Vegas,
No.
right, or even our country. That especially with the pandemic, like think of how many people have PTSD
Yeah.
or traits of PTSD now that
Yes.
we've been isolated in our own four walls,
Yeah.
right? So I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, and I felt like I was going insane, and I thought
Probably were.
well, and I ended
A
up
little.
getting vertigo.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I noticed was that people would tell me, "Oh, you should try edibles or you should try weed." But right, I've been programmed that that's the gateway drug, right? And so the whole idea of that to me makes me a little nervous, right? And so someone told me to take Dramamine because of my dizziness with the vertigo.
Interesting.
And I would take it at night, right? I would take a little Dramamine, and it was like someone tucked me in. I literally would like fall asleep like this and just be calm. And so I'm like, obviously I don't want to take Dramamine for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
so I
I
started
know.
looking into things. And so it's interesting to me that, first of all, we have to take a look at these things differently because we've been programmed to believe that they're gangster.
Weed is
they're
the devil. Yeah.
Right. And I'm one of those people. So, and especially like I said, so we work with vets specifically. So,
Mhm.
right, like, and the masculinity and all of this thing that's going on,
Yes.
right? Like, so there's so many barriers to
Yes.
just seeing that this could be a solution.
Yes.
Maybe not the solution, but
Yeah.
a solution to some of our sleep problems, anxiety, trying to think PTSD, right? So for me, my question is it something that I would have to take forever?
I don't think so. Especially with so it depends on your issue. It's definitely particular to your issue. Like I have a lot of people that come to me with like, I can't sleep. And I'm like, here's a high dose of CBN and maybe a little bit of Delta 8 or something like that. Sometimes in edible form, sometimes in tincture form. And I would be like, this is what's good for you, try it out. But I'd also give them like a Delta 8 pen for the days and be like, hey, listen, like while you're getting this good sleep and resetting your biology and your chemistry and like you're like getting back on your schedule, I would definitely suggest like relaxing on this during the day, but think about your issues.
Right.
Like don't just hide from them, engage,
Right.
because like I could tell you, oh, this is gonna fix your problem. No, you're gonna have to fix your problems.
Right.
You have to fix your problems.
Right.
You can't just, and like that's what we don't do with the Delta 9. That's what I don't do with the Delta 9. Like the regular cannabis. I don't. I hide from my
Yeah.
issues, and I've had so much more growth, so much more mental growth, emotional growth since I started just kind of like using the Delta 8 and like. I do every once in a while get high with the Delta 9. I do go. I'm not afraid of it. I love to smoke weed. It's the greatest thing ever. It's helped me like relax. It's taken away anxieties, like for sure. But like I don't progress as much on it, and like it's an escape here and there if you use it all the time. There's months of my life where I've used Delta 9 or like other things, and like I just know I was hiding or running from my issues.
Right. So this would be something that we would do with something else,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this would, to me, when I look at this, because I deal with PTSD with my vets and everything I've been studying with mental health is that we're kind of stuck in that fight or flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we express that different ways. It could be PTSD, it could be anxiety, it could be, we have certain vets where there's no communication and
Mm-hmm.
they're still working, but you don't hear from, they're off that radar,
Yeah.
right? They're always below that confrontation or communication. So everybody expresses that differently. So for me, it's like, is this going to help unlock that fight or flight so that I can do the work, right? Because you're saying that the work is really looking in, now that you can calm your body,
Yeah.
right? Now that you're not ready to fight
Yeah.
the flight, and I always include freeze because that's
Yeah.
another one too,
Yeah,
right?
it's good to have options.
And that to me is the freeze is the people that kind of zone out and just
Yeah.
don't address anything,
Yeah.
right? So if I can get those different things, fight, flight, freeze, to kind of settle,
Yeah.
then I can really kind of look at where is this coming from, right? What are some
Yeah.
things that I can use besides just this to help mediate my life in a better way?
For the absolutely, because for the most part, like what I use the Delta 8, the Delta 9, any of that stuff for is to get the anxieties down so that they can figure out what the actual issues are. Because like if I can get you healthy, if I can get you hydrated, if I can get you to get food in your stomach and get you hungry again and get you sleeping on a schedule, like you're going to be able to get your mind squared away and figure out what the actual issue is, and we can move forward from that.
Right.
You know, and like, or like if it's something else that you have going on in your life, like, oh my gosh, you know, like I just lost this, or I just lost this person, or I just, you know, well, I've been hiding from this because like I've been doing, you know, like, you know, pills, whatever this person's issue is.
Right.
However it's manifesting itself in their biology and their psychology, like they aren't going to figure it out because at this point they have been running from it from so long that they don't even know what the problem looks like anymore.
Right. So they're masking it with some of these things that they're doing, possibly illegally. It's more of a mask, a band-aid. So you're saying with these facilitate us to more health, more freedom to me, right? So less isolation, because to me isolation can be these four walls, right? Yes. So I can check out even though I'm here, I can still be checked out, right? Exactly. And that's what I see a lot with my vets, is this like clear gloss of, is anyone in there type of.
That's I go through the motions. It's like, it's almost like we're supposed to be here because like this is what's it, you know.
Yeah, well, and I see that in my alley. I was, you know, recently talking to a homeless guy in my alley, and he literally looked up at the D and said, yeah, I was up there a couple of days ago ready to jump. And you know, my job is to humanize homelessness, and I feel like the thing that I've been doing the most is just listening. And so instead of freaking out, like I really thought about like, don't freak out on my facial features, don't raise my voice. And I didn't say anything either. You know, I didn't try to fix it. I didn't try to ask any questions. I just kind of nodded like, whoa, you know. And the more
information.
And the more that I was just quiet and gave him this empty space, just stuff started coming out, right? He hears voices in his head, this and that. But it was interesting that the voice that got him to come off that place of hopelessness told him, like, got in a fight. So to me, it was like him fighting with himself. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, you still got to fight, right?
There's
so
still
you got to fight.
There's still something.
And they're telling me now, standing here looking at that place, and I'm like, and so I've been recently certified or getting certified in it's called Heart Math. It's a meditation that they use for PTSD and trauma. And so it was like the weirdest thing for me to just listen to him. And then I was like, will you do something for me? I was like, will you put your hand on your heart? And he kind of looked at me like, but it was like, at this point, what are the alternatives? Like, you know, I was just up here getting ready to take my life. Like really, like so he put his hand on his heart. And I know from my own trauma that I have a hard time closing my eyes and feeling comfort. So I said, you don't need to close your eyes unless you want to. I said, we just take a few deep breaths and breathe into your heart. And he kind of looked at me like, but it was that same like, why not, right? And so he breathed, and I was like, just the next time you're ever feeling hopeless, just remember that I was here listening to your story and that I care. And breathe into your heart, know that one person cares. And he was like, and he just like fist bumped me and walked away. And it was like, I didn't give him a home. I didn't give him any food. I didn't give him psychological fixing, so to speak. I didn't even give him any weed or, you know.
Sometimes, honestly, it's like that's
just like one person listening to your story and going, I see you, like I care about you. The next time that you feel hopeless or the next time you feel lonely, remember, like in my mind, I was thinking, just come to my alley. I'll talk to you. I'll listen to you. Like, and that's what I love about my job and the alley that I work in, is that I'm learning now these new tools too, because there's so much that I can share with some of these guys that, you know, I wouldn't have because I'm not learning these tools, you know, because even if this is something that I don't do personally, now I know it's a toolkit that I can offer somebody else. So to wrap this all up, I've heard of microdosing. So is this kind of that? Is this like taking something and then microdosing it to like create?
So yes and no. I do a little bit of both on both sides. Like so for some guys, for some people, like I've got some guys in like North Carolina who don't have access to anything besides opiates, and like they hurt and they can't sleep and they have anxiety, and like they can't get anything. So I send them this, but you know, it's like with the tinctures you can do certain milligram strengths. Some people are going to need more.
Right.
You know, some people really like my mom. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist in church school. I graduated in a class of 40 kids. Like I knew them since kindergarten. I know all their families since I was born. Like I know, like me smoking weed at 15 or 16 was very abnormal.
Okay.
You know, like
For that group that you were in.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's definitely not something that was like looked well upon.
Right.
But like as I grew up, I got to, you know, like start actually applying it and learning it, and my mom actually started listening to me. You know, like I didn't push.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, hey, smoke this, smoke this, smoke this. Like I just like as the years went on, like I slowly like started educating her. You know, and like I didn't push it, but like when she asked me about it and she started asking me about my experiences and like, you know, what I'd experimented with or done, like I was open and I was honest.
Yeah.
I was like, listen, like I've had stuff that's been negative for me, and it was mainly pharmaceutical.
Right.
Like all the pharmaceutical stuff like really messed me up. I was
Me too.
high ADD when I was a kid, and like I was on Adderall, I was on this, I was on that. Like we're trying to figure out but you know, like I had asthma, I was on all kinds of weird puffers that just made me breathe harder, you know, like. And then in the end, like even like I used to be told all the time growing up, if I smoked weed, my asthma was just gonna get way worse. Like when I turned 18, I ran a 16-minute 3-mile. Like no, I was smoking at my peakest peak at that point in my life. Like I was feeling better. Like after a couple of years of smoking, like and even after I went into the Marine Corps, like my fitness was good because I was always training, but like. For sure, anxiety level 9,000, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, now I've got my mom, even after all the stuff that I've been through with like actually learning about it, I've got her on like some Delta 8, got her on some CBN, she's starting to get off like the pain pills, you know, the sleeping pills. She has fibromyalgia, she has like all these like she was in car accidents a bunch in her life, she's got like little pieces of glass throughout her body, like all these issues, you know? But like she's working on them and she's dealing with them directly now, as opposed to just like taking
a pill and checking out. Yeah.
It's the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's the best thing in the world. And like to have it be like your own parent or something that you actually care about, and like to turn the page on marijuana. Because like I'm not just some stoner kid anymore, you know? Like you know, like you can help people with this. This can change the world. Like it's not a pharmaceutical.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Well, Connor, I love hearing your story. I love learning new information to share, possibly try, you never know.
For sure.
But if we needed to find you, where could we find you? Where's Fresh Bros? Can we find you online?
We have an Instagram
store?
for sure.
Okay.
We have freshbros.com. That's our main website.
Okay.
We can get almost all of our products on there. So a big thing also recently that we've been dealing with, which I would really like to talk about if we have the time.
Sure.
So during the stimulus, there was this thing called the PACT Act that came through, and there was a big shift because in like when the stimulus was given to everybody and when it got signed and all the laws got approved, something came through that was basically anything that's a vaporizer is now considered a cigarette. So like even if it's just got CBD or Delta 8 or CBN or like any of the things that I use that I send to my guys who have like their issues with like the PTSD, the anxiety, I try to send them their Delta 8 or that because that's how they prefer it. They want to smoke it. We can no longer do that.
Wow.
Because
and where did that law came from? Government?
So and don't quote me on the.
No. I just was curious.
Yeah,
is it state by state or is it the whole United States?
It's national. Okay. So like anything that vaporizes a liquid is now considered a cigarette, regardless of if it has nicotine in it or not.
I didn't know that.
This is a big thing that a lot of people don't know, but I basically went from being able to send, and like now I can still do tinctures, I can still do edibles, I can still help my boys out all across the country.
Right.
But like a lot of them just want the vaporizers, and you know, like they can't be eating the gummies because of this or like whatever. I mean, this is their method. Right. This is what works for them.
Yeah.
And so like now like I have a big issue because like we can't send them their medicine that they want. You know, and like, so I'm having to try to switch them over to something else, or I'm having to find them new programs, or like find someone else in their area like they can get it from because I can't now ship it to them. I can ship within Las Vegas, but like as a company, we're a wellness company, and like we sell wellness vapes. We don't sell poison. We sell things that help people. But like I've been hamstringed, you know, just because like So a lot of what it is like it's to keep cigarettes out of kids' hands. It's to keep actual, negative nicotine vapors. I'm not a cigarette salesman. I'm not a nicotine guy. Like I want to keep cigarettes out of the hands of kids too. And like we're working on this and we're promoting this and we're talking who we can about like what we can do in the industry. But like we've got a lot of people who are like, like the honey badger companies or like different companies like that are like the vaporizer companies that are specifically for, like concentrates and like cannabis and things like that. Those are now considered cigarettes because they changed the definition of a word. Like they didn't want to create a new body to basically govern this, like CBD, Delta 8.
So instead of a new category, they just shoved it into an old category.
Yes, and like
was that for of course I'm a little conspiracy. Was that for profit or
so
no?
Basically,
you said for children, it was to protect children, or at least that's the theory.
And so now we fall under the ATF, so we don't fall under the ATF because we got rid of vaporizers, basically.
Which you kind of had to, right?
Yes, because we're a wellness company. We're not a nicotine company.
Right.
That's the big thing that we're about. Is like we're about helping people. We're about health. We want people to be better. We're getting into because of this. Like we're moving our direction to even more wellness. We're moving into like some mushrooms. Some things like that, some cordyceps, some so we're looking at some pre-workouts, some post-workouts, some early morning recovery things. Like that's the direction that we want to head.
Right.
Like we don't want to just be like a company that gets you kind of high. Like whatever.
Right.
Like, but we're about like getting your body better, getting your mind better, strengthening you. And so, but it just the big thing that sucked was like now I have like these customers who I've had these like my ex-Marines, my other people who I've like built up. People who are building like D8 vape businesses, like they're like, oh, this is great. Like we have criminals who are now like white side who are starting to like build their own businesses legally, and like all this is being hamstrung just because like they kind of like wanted their piece of the pie in the emerging industry.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
It's basically what it's about. Like now we have to get a license in order to do certain things, in order to sell our cigarettes, which aren't cigarettes, just because they're electronic vaporizers.
So you're basically saying if I got all the information, if I want to do a vape, I basically have to buy it in the state that I'm in, because if it crosses the lines, it gets complicated for the company.
Yes.
Okay, so I still can. It's just it needs to be through the area, which is tricky, right? Because you said in some places they can't get this.
They don't have Delta 8, and so like what they would have to do is basically like find a way to either like get their own vaporizers there and like get the oil and things like that, but like this is now just like a bunch of extra steps that people need to take their medicine. Right. And if you're already high anxiety, PTSD, the last thing you want to do is feel like you're a criminal again, trying to hustle something that should be legal. Exactly. Yeah, and like tough. I don't know, it's a hard thing, but I mean it is what it is, and like we're working through it, we're finding ways, like, we're being legal, we're following the laws, we're sticking to it, like we want to succeed as a company. But for sure, it's like, it was just, oh man. I just went from feeling like I've been helping people, I've been getting these emails from like guys who are like, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And I'm just like, that's the best thing in the world to me. Right. There's nothing better. Like, pay me no money ever. Like, just give me that. Give me all those. Right. Like that.
It's interesting because our last wellness was a CEO that has a app for sleep, helping with sleeping anxiety. And he had graduated from Cornell, brilliant guy, right? He went and worked for the doctors, like in the medical field, and made tons of money. He said not once did he ever hear a thank you. Made him millions, right? And he said, but now he's working with people who have PTSD, anxiety, and he goes, and I get emails and stories daily, and he's like, I am just so fulfilled.
It's the best.
So it's just nice to stay in contact, and I feel like that's kind of the theme of our wellness is that when you really care about the health and wellness, you're caring about their mental health, because that's going to obviously trickle down into their physical health.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's nice to see someone that's obviously been experimenting with themselves and 100%. Seeing some success, and now you said you're on the white side, the good side, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So we're glad that you could be doing something that you thought was necessarily not so good, and turn it into something that was good for something, and not just for you but for others.
Absolutely.
So I love to hear that Fresh Bros is going into those wellness concepts, even though you're getting the snafus with the vapors, because to me my background is wellness, and so if I start feeling better mentally, then I'm going to want to go for a walk, then I'm going to want to do these things. And so these pre-workouts, this falls in line with kind of our company and then other companies that we're affiliated with. So I'd love to have you on.
For sure.
And maybe get a little more in depth on some of the future of Fresh Bros and see what you're formulating. But we appreciate you being here on a wellness show. Is there anything else that you want to share with Fresh Bros that you can think of that So you're online.
We are.
Freshbros.com.
We are. We also have an Instagram.
Instagram.
We do.
Okay.
And
then a shop. Is there a shop that we could go to?
We do not. We just have the online store.
Okay.
Ever since COVID started, we
Makes
backed
it
off.
tricky again. Yeah. Okay.
Well, the idea of wellness and not spreading as many germs as possible is something that we're very interested in.
So online, Instagram. Can they talk to you directly?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
I have an email. It's csprague@freshbros.com, or also you can, any orders or anything like that for the company, or any questions or anything like that, we have fulfillment at freshbros.com, and anything or any input you guys have or any projects you guys are interested in working on, like, feel free to reach out. Like, we're always open to new collaborations or anything like that. So, I mean, give us a call, let us know.
Awesome. Well, it's so great to meet you. Hopefully will be an ongoing connection, because I know for our vets, we're always looking for new wellness tips that we can share with them and encourage them. So we are growing as a company, which is awesome. So we have a certain amount of vets, and we'll be hiring more vets in the future. So I'm hoping this partnership can kind of expand into bigger things, country, nation, worldly. I have big ideas in the small brain, but
I don't like to stop. So wherever that goes, let's go for it.
I have lots of visions for expanding health and wellness, and I think things like this help us. Because we know that we're seeing people from all over the world. So thank you, Connor.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for showing up for Wellness Wednesday. I hope you were interested in all of the geeky science that I was into. And if this is hitting you in a personal level and maybe something that you want to try, reach out to Connor. I'm sure he would love to hear from you, and let us know about your journey. Thank you.